to our, what month is it? May? It's May, right? Time has no meaning. Welcome to our May ProductTank Toronto. I am Rosemary, one of the organizers of ProductTank Toronto. And I'm so excited for the program that we have for you this evening. Quick show of hands, how many of you are coming to ProductTank for the first time? Nice. And how many of you have come to one or two of these this year? Fantastic. Amazing. We are so excited because as we progress through running these, we become more and more organized. We have, you have to switch the slide, Mike.
Less organized.
Less organized. You see, it's all lean. We're all very lean thinking here. So we now have slides. We now have intro slides. So again, I'm Rosemary. I am a 13-year veteran of the product management role. I've worked in New York City. I've worked in London. I transplanted to Toronto last year and said, why isn't there a ProductTank in the city? And so we've got to fix that. And have been slowly but surely cobbling together an amazing team of individuals. And so I'm very happy to say that because I was traveling at the beginning of this month, I was able to hand the organization of this month's meetup to my fearless co-organizer, Mike Shoss, who has barely joined us. So I leave you in his very capable hands, and I'll let him take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure this stream is up and running. It's giving me nothing but issues. Awesome, cool. I'm Mike, so thank you for the introduction, Rosemary. We have an exciting agenda to go through today. So we're going to do quick little welcome messages, things like that. We're going to go through we got three talks with 4 people. We're then going to do a wonderful Q&A. We're going to have a networking session afterwards, and then the event ends at 10. So after the networking session, we also have the wonderful, we have a sign-up room, so feel free to go use that as well. Network with anyone in here. Again, you're all here for a specific reason. You have an overlap between product management and AI. Some of you fall in a subset of that, so a lot of people are going to fit right in the wheelhouse. So I just want to say thank you for everyone for coming out. At the same time, we also want to thank our venue provider, 111, and our drink sponsor, Michael. So put your hand up. Go. If you want beverages, this is your guy. Also part of Guru Link. So if you want to also find a job, just go to that way. Also, I want to thank our volunteers. This takes a lot of work, energy, effort to get to this point, and it's not Rosemary and myself doing this. It's countless volunteers to be able to get to this point. So please either stand up or raise your hand or something like that if you feel comfortable.
Our volunteers.
No, my volunteers.
Put your hands up.
Awesome. That's from the back. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Without this group, this would not be able to be happening. Just so thank you across the board for everyone. We want to make sure. So you met Rosemary, you saw her slide up there when I screwed up and didn't put it up right away. I also have a wonderful slide. So you're looking at this guy, who is this guy? Who is this handsome guy up here in the corner? He doesn't look like that now because he's a little sweaty. But I'm an innovative builder at heart. I've been in product management 15 years. I was the second PM at Silicon Valley startup. That was a short video live streaming startup. I've spent 5 years in AI. I hold 3 patents in it. I hold 9 in total. If you want to talk about nerdy things, I got that. Active startup mentor, investor, advisor, and deeply passionate about community. I run this community as a co-organizer. I also have one in Milton. It's called Milton Innovation. If you're from the west end for you guys, so I'd love to have you at an event. We talk all innovation across the board. I also have a AI one that I'm in the middle of working on as well. So I love people. I love connecting. You're not going to hear a lot from me tonight. You're going to hear this little spiel, and that's basically going to be it, as well as some question and answer. But in the networking phase, please come and talk to me. I spent a lot of time building out AI solutions. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it means to the product community. There's a lot of AI for the sake of AI in this world right now. This is a great technology. Let's go find a problem for it. What you're going to hear from tonight is that's not always true. That generally doesn't work out. Currently, I'm the senior product manager and head of artificial intelligence for a company. I don't know if anyone from my company is actually here tonight. Is that ever coming? Awesome, no hands. And fractional chief CAIO and CPO for a company that I run by myself. So again, a lot of nerdy things. You want to talk to me about things, product AI, also dogs. If you have a dog, I would like to see pictures of your dog. I will talk to you a lot if you show me pictures of your dog. So anyways. This is a wonderful QR code that you should scan, and then you can also go to this wonderful Linktree ProductTank TO. This has a whole bunch of resources in here. such as social media events and past events and lists of resources. And one of those wonderful resources is a whole bunch of AI information resources that the community and the volunteers have put together. There's a list of about 6 or 7 kind of free AI product management focused tools in there, courses they'll be offered. Pendo actually has one as well that I went through and completed. Highly recommend if you're interested in AI. This is a great little entry, but there's tons and tons of free resources out there. Don't feel like you need to go pay for anything. It definitely go here. So I expect everyone to save that link. So yeah, social media. We have LinkedIn. We have Instagram. We have all these other social media. We have a Slack community as well. Please feel free to go join that. All of that is in this. I expect to see all those numbers go up and to the right tomorrow. All right, our next event too, we also want to make sure that we have everything that's going on here. So the next event is about supercharging your AI usage. So we have a two-part series. This is part 1, this is part 2. Again, 111, thank you for the sponsorship. June 25th is going to be the date. So same time, same location, same amount of people plus about 100 more is what we're expecting. So like bring your friends. There will be food and all that fun stuff and drinks. So this is the next event that we're having on here, so make sure you mark your calendar. This will be going live a couple of days after this event ends, and everyone knows where to find it because I just made everyone scan the link and go buy it on Meetup anyways. But at the end of the day, you can also go to the Linktree and the tickets will be there. So this is my last slide. You don't have to hear from me for a little while, which is wonderful. Renee is, got that right, Renee, awesome. Renee is a lead product strategist at Cloudworks with a proven track record across diverse industries from healthcare, financial services, and retail. Employing iterative testing methodologies, she evaluates the desirability, feasibility, and viability throughout the product lifecycle, deeply minimizing risks and maximizing business outcomes. Previously, Renee earned a master's degree in health informatics. Thank you, that one, which laid a solid foundation in information design, development and application. She sparked an early interest in AI-powered products. She pursues additional AI training to fuel her passion further, including Harvard's course on artificial intelligence and business, creating value with machine learning alongside ThoughtWorks, the Gen AI product strategy bootcamp. So give a warm welcome to Renee.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. It is great to be here. I'm Renee. What I want to do today is keep it pretty casual and super tactical and share with you some of my experiences integrating AI tools into my workflows as a product strategist. I'm going to ground this talk in the tactics and techniques we use in our practice. So to set the stage, it would be helpful if you knew a little bit more about the kind of work I do at ThoughtWorks. So as a lead product strategist, specializing in product discovery, I partner with clients to uncover and develop new product opportunities. The way we guide the development of standard products is by focusing on solving customer problems and delivering value quickly. My responsibilities include identifying opportunities that will solve real customer problems, pinpointing and prioritizing the most promising ideas, mitigating risks, building user-centered, market-fit products quickly, transforming existing products to meet evolving needs, and utilizing emerging technologies to maintain a competitive edge. In this role, I've had the opportunity to work across diverse industries from fintech, smart home security, social media and communications, and retail. I find Marty Caden's framework of the 4 key product risks really helpful for talking about the work I do. So desirability, do customers want this? Will they choose it? Usability confirms that users can easily and effectively use the product. Viability verifies that the product aligns with business goals and is financially sustainable. And lastly, feasibility assesses whether the product can be built with current technology and resources. We use this framework to mitigate risks throughout the product development cycle. In the very early stages of discovery, our primary focus is on validating or getting a signal on desirability. We aim to establish confidence in a chosen product direction by validating select concepts through research and testing, leading to the development of a clear product roadmap for subsequent phases. Sorry. One of the essential tools we rely on is our product thinking playbook. And while we are also a big consultancy, I'm not going to be trying to sell you on this, but this is a tool that I use almost every day. I want you to think about this as an amalgamation of techniques, tactics, and milestones that come from different product development disciplines, like design thinking, agile development, lean product strategy, and jobs to be done theory. The playbook itself is in the form of cards like the ones you see here on the right, which we use to design our projects with clients. The output of these we call plays. So I'll highlight just a few that you're going to see again and again in this presentation. So the blue tactic cards offer methods and strategies to achieve desired outcomes, while the white technique cards detail specific methods to execute those tactics. And the purple milestone cards mark the conclusion of phases and demonstrate progress. So it helps keep the projects on track and ensures goals are being met efficiently. So here's a typical discovery play for identifying new product opportunities. Now this play is pretty high level, and it's just sitting at the tactic and milestone level. Think of it as a roadmap, helping teams navigate through the complexities of product discovery with a clear strategy. Later on, we'll layer in some techniques which specify how you would execute those tactics. Nonetheless, even with robust tools like the 4 product risks framework and our product thinking playbook, product development, and especially product discovery in the 0 to 1 context, remains almost as much art as it is science. Navigating the nuances of user needs, market trends, and creative innovation requires intuition, creativity, and dare I even say some subjective judgment. This is needed to uncover the kind of unprecedented solutions that I believe no framework can fully encapsulate. That's why I really like this quote by Martin Weigle. I might be pronouncing that correctly. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at a leading creative agency, and I like this quote because it highlights the necessity of creativity in our work. Strategy isn't just about following a set path, it's about imagining new possibilities and daring to envision what doesn't exist yet. I want to emphasize in this talk with you today that creativity is at the heart of the 0 to 1 mindset in product development. This diagram illustrates the non-linear and exploratory nature of 0 to 1 desirability testing journey. As you can see, the process involves navigating numerous possible concept directions, reflecting the complexity and the uncertainty inherent in early stage product discovery. We start by asking, how should this be built for desirability? This phase involves product directions, design implications, and strategic recommendations. As we move forward, we then ask, is this thing we built even desirable? Here we focus on prioritization, attitudinal and behavioral assessments, and stats to validate our ideas. This journey underscores how our creative intuition and iterative testing ultimately shape innovative and desirable products. However, this creative journey is not without its challenges. For one, the process of synthesizing vast amounts of data and transforming it into actionable insights can be daunting. Layer in pressures around tight timelines, the need to iterate quickly, all while managing risks effectively. This represents the typical environment of our product discovery practice. A dynamic and rewarding environment, yes, yet one that constantly demands more efficient ways to manage information and accelerate our creative process. Given the pressures of our product discovery environment, it's crucial to be aware of the factors that can hinder our creative process. One significant aspect to consider is the impact of cognitive biases. These biases can subtly influence our thinking, leading to missed opportunities and stifled innovation. Here are a few that can affect the quality of our product development efforts. First, we have pattern recognition bias, where we see patterns that may not exist, leading to missed opportunities. Next, we have confirmation bias. This is my favorite. I demonstrate this all the time. It makes us favor information that confirms our preconceptions, ignoring valuable contradictory data. Functional fixedness restricts our thinking to traditional uses of objects or concepts, preventing us from finding the most creative solutions. Anchoring bias causes us to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter, which can really narrow our thinking. And lastly, status quo bias makes us prefer the existing state of affairs and resist change. That can stifle innovation. By being aware of these biases, we can take steps to mitigate their effects and foster a more creative and open-minded approach to product development, but we're going to talk about how AI is also inserting itself into that process. In this book from 1964 called The Act of Creation, Arthur Kiesler introduced us to the notion of bi-association, which involves combining two unrelated ideas or concepts to generate innovative solutions. So by juxtaposing different knowledge domains or perspectives, this method encourages creative thinking and the discovery of novel connections that might not emerge through traditional brainstorming methods. This approach leverages the brain's ability to find new patterns in relationships, fostering more out-of-the-box ideas. A great example of the bi-association technique is actually the invention of Velcro. So there's a Swiss engineer named George Demestra. What he did is combine his knowledge of textiles with his observation that birds kept getting stuck in his dog's fur. And that is how we have Velcro. So I give this example of the bi-association technique to start thinking about how we as humans generally approach things like brainstorming and ideation. On the left here, you're seeing the ideation playbook technique card, while on the right, this is a classic ideation workshop warm-up activity that I run all the time. And I'm wondering if Rosemary is here because I know she used to do my job and I feel like I want to know if this is something she's seen before. So we use this warm-up activity. It's set up so that each member of the project team, and that can be people who work with me on ThoughtWorks as well as the clients, obviously, I'm working with, each project team member has their own space, and using the two objects, so in this case, I see that's a little small, that's a running shoe and a wooden spoon. We give people a few minutes to just come up with any new mashup of objects that serve a new function. So that's truly an example of the bi-association technique that we're using just as a warm-up to get our participants into the discovery mindset, the ideation mindset. But let's spice things up with ChatGPT a little bit. So I want to introduce to you tri-association. So in this example, I use the following prompt. I'll read it out to you. You will play the role of an ideator. You will randomly generate 10 common nouns. You will then randomly select any two of those nouns. You will then ask me for a third noun. You will generate a business idea by combining or associating the two nouns you identified and the noun I identified. So from the list of 10 nouns on the left, ChatGPT selected car and book. You can see at the top, it then asked me for a noun. I gave it pencil. And then just like that, it gave me a brand new business idea by combining these three nouns for the mobile study lounge. So I'll just read a little bit of this out to you. This is the description it gave me. So imagine a fleet of stylish, eco-friendly mobile lounges or cars designed specifically for students and professionals who need a quiet, comfortable space to read and work. These mobile study lounges would be equipped with cozy seating, plenty of natural light, and a curated library of books for various subjects. Each lounge would also include all the essentials for study and work, pencils, notebooks, other stationery. You could book a spot in these lounges by an app, and they would be parked in convenient locations around the cities, near schools, universities, business districts. I thought it was pretty good, and it happened just like this. So I have to admit that doing this did give me a bit of AI vertigo. Some of you might recognize that term from the Hard Forward podcast, one of my favorites. It reflects this disorienting feeling people experience when thinking about a future where AI significantly alters society. So that's just a little aside of how we can think about ChatGPT with our ideation activities. All of this kind of AI vertigo and this change came to a head for me in a high-stakes project with an athleisure brand I greatly admire. They partnered with us to develop and validate 5 early stage concepts in parallel, all of which were intended to enhance brand engagement with their customers. So here's a representative discovery approach. We call this make to learn, which embodies our iterative process for building to gain insights and refine ideas. I want to double click into some of the more challenging aspects of this project, starting with the concept generation tactic. So the sample plays I've shown before featured, like I said, 2 types of cards, milestones, and tactics. Techniques, on the other hand, I mentioned, specify how you would execute against your chosen tactic. In this case, we selected the concept development technique, which is all about maturing ideas towards a more refined understanding of the value proposition, the user experience, the technology involved, potential features, risks, enablers. It's that initial phase where you explore various possibilities. During concept development, we focus on brainstorming, sketching, and discussing different approaches to solve a problem. It's more about what the product could be and less about the specifics of how it will be built. So remember that squiggly visual from before. This was very squiggly. I totally underestimated the challenge of developing 5 concepts in parallel. Time constraints, combined with the sheer cognitive load associated with moving all of these ideas forward, were truly making things difficult. Meanwhile, the rise of ChatGPT 3.0 was upon us, and all of us on the team were starting to kind of adopt it in secret, at their own pace. You don't really know what you're using it for. But as a team, we started to kind of tepidly experiment, first using it to help craft a set of user scenarios that we could present research participants alongside some lo-fi sketches so that our research participants could meaningfully compare and contrast and better articulate what aspects of each of those 5 concepts they were really liking. Baby steps, really, but nonetheless, I was beginning to experience some of these gains. But as exciting as the prospect of integrating AI into our workflows and projects was, I had some initial doubts, particularly around privacy and security of these AI tools. Neil mentioned IP, huge concerns. With the rise of GPT 3.0, there were legitimate concerns about how data would be handled and whether using these tools could expose sensitive client information. Shown here are a number of different AI risks. There are more. So I leaned on my teammates and colleagues for guidance. So in this analogy, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm surrounded by a bunch of Obi-Wan Kenobis at my everyday job. Every day, there's chatter on Slack. We have dedicated channels, like Gen AI channel, AI channel. Not to mention the fact that my main client stakeholder was literally using ChatGPT and sharing her screen right in front of me. So it kind of eased me into it a little bit more. All of a sudden, my design colleagues started experimenting with Midjourney. I upskilled myself in various courses. As a company, ThoughtWorks expanded our offerings, a few of which I'm highlighting here. Moreover, the product management community, this community at large, was incredibly insightful and inspiring. Through podcasts, I mentioned Heartport before, and of course I'll add Lenny's podcast to the list, blogs, tweets, industry leaders, peers. Everybody has been sharing their experiences and insights about the promise of AI and practical applications for our field. All of this made me feel more at ease. Back to the project. Fast forward a few sprints, a few iterations, one of those 5 concepts was clearly outperforming the others. We continued to get a positive signal on this after several quick rounds of concept testing. So building on this momentum, our next step was to develop a fully functional prototype that we could use in a type of unmoderated experiment known as a diary study. So in diary studies, as you may know, participants will have the chance to interact with this prototype over an extended period of time and providing ongoing feedback to us about their experience as they did it. As we developed our winning concept into a functional prototype, one of the specific features we focused on was particularly exciting because it involved testing and learning about our participants' responses to various gamified elements. This was very important for our client. They really wanted to understand how their customers would receive various types of gamified elements, a few of which I've listed on the screen here. So the feature itself revolved around users making choices between two images multiple times, with each choice reflecting a subconscious preference for the underlying attributes contained in that image. I'll explain. So this feature would be ostensibly powered by AI. It would learn from the user's choices and output recommendations. And apologies here, I do have to be deliberately vague to respect my client's confidentiality and IP, but we can give a different example. So maybe you could imagine a scenario, it's a game, where you're presented with a couple of different food choices. On the left, your left, you see some potato chips, bag chips. And on the other side, you see some candies. And right away, you're making the choice, the obvious choice for potato chips. The next image pairing presents some popcorn on one side and maybe cake on the other side. You pick popcorn, and so on. In our simple version of this game, just a prototype, right, just an early prototype, we hope to learn if the user had an underlying preference for salty snacks or sweet treats. And if the majority of their choices were salty, then the game would output maybe some recipe ideas featuring salty snacks. We had the desired game mechanics down, but we were struggling to align on the final elements of this feature, especially the results users would receive after playing the game. We knew we would provide recommendations, and I'm not being vague about what the domain is about, but we knew we were going to provide recommendations based on user selection. But we wanted to add a cheeky horoscope-style reading to reflect the user's current mood or vibe in that moment. Remember those fun personality test-style quizzes in magazines from back in the day? Oh my gosh, I'm nowhere near this. Okay, we're gonna speed up. Okay, you know who does this brilliantly? Spotify, with their listening personalities. They categorize users based on their music preferences and listening habits. Our client loved this idea and wanted to incorporate a similar engaging feature. Now, I fancy myself a decent writer, but you know who are better writers? Spotify's marketing team. We only had a 6-week timeline to build this functional prototype. And this was just one feature among 6. So I was feeling pressure. In a moment of desperation, I turned to ChatGPT and I fed it every single learning personality or listening personality Spotify has ever outputted. Teaching it the desired vibe and tone, I explained the game. I asked to develop 4 horoscope-style readings. So for instance, if you chose salty snack options, you would get some kind of salty snack themed reading. This was a pivotal shift. The output was amazing. It felt like I was cheating. So maybe it would look like this. This is just an example, I made it up. I had so much fun with this that I created a custom GPT that will generate this kind of vibe reading for you in response. I'm just experimenting, as you all should be as well with these tools. So in this case, I inputted I feel like a salty snack. And I'm not going to read that out for you because I'm already short on time. I'm not sure how many more slides I'll get to. But try it. Scan the QR code, tell my reader what you're feeling. And just to be clear, this is AI for AI's sake. I know Neil mentioned this before. I'm not changing lives with this. This is fun. And we should all feel really comfortable experimenting with these tools and getting our hands dirty. So we won the client over, but we didn't know. We knew the research participants would be a tougher sell. I'm going to fast forward through the results slide. It was an overwhelming success, but this is not about me bragging about this project. This is about talking about how AI is changing things. This project was meaningful because it went well beyond the positive results of our diary study, and it showcases some examples for the potential of how AI can enhance our creativity and efficiency in product discovery. So moving from traditional methods to this new AI way of working. So I want to propose this modified version of the classic double diamond. Apologies, I had to race over that pretty quickly. Here in this modified version, we're introducing a new additional phase. We're calling it catalyze. This involves identifying cognitive tasks and then creating some how might we statements out of it. I'm going to skip over these details and end on my last slide, but all of this to say we are actively thinking about how these technologies are truly changing our traditional methods and making them for the better. So what I want to drive home tonight is the potential for AI to catalyze product discovery. In our evolving landscape, the intersection of product thinking, which is human-centered, and AI thinking, which is capability-centered, this is this new frontier in AI development. So this convergence is where we find highly leveraged generative AI solutions that are grounded in both real customer needs and business opportunities. Okay, so folks, this is a sweet spot where the two mindsets overlap. In conclusion, by integrating product thinking and AI thinking, we can develop AI solutions that are not only powerful and efficient, but also meaningful and beneficial to our users. So get out there, experiment yourselves, have fun with it, take it all in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to bring the next presenter up. It's actually a duo. Awesome. So we're going to have two. Let you get plugged in. We'll do the quick introduction here. We got the voice flow duo. If you're not familiar with voice flow, I think you're going to learn a little bit about it. So we currently have Tashin and Dennis. Awesome, Dennis. Tashin is currently building as the head of AI for customer experience voice flow, a conversational AI agent platform leveraging large language models. He spearheads CX and the creation of Tico. That's correct. Awesome. The award-winning AI agent automator, customer support, deflecting over 6,000 tickets per month, used by over 200,000, aimed at productionizing the vision of an automated virtual employee. Tico was recently named as 2024's Best AI Agent and Best Virtual Assistant. Dennis is the head of machine learning at Voice Flow, an ML advisor and LinkedIn learning course instructor. He's worked with over 50 enterprises on their conversational AI journey, and his Gen AI course has helped over 100,000 learners build key skills. He's worked across the AI product stack, being hands-on with key ML systems, managing product delivery teams, as well as directly with customers on best practices.
All right. Who here has heard of AI agents before? Who here has built an AI agent? Who's deployed it to production? Who wants to see a demo of production AI agent? So, we already had ourselves introduced. I'm Dennis, that's Seem. We work at VoiceFlow. Today we're going to talk through how we built Tico, which is a customer support agent for VoiceFlow, how we automated a very large portion of our customer support. So handing it over to Seem to get started.
Yeah, for sure. So has anyone ever done customer support before? If you haven't, oh, there we go, a few. If you have, this probably looks like a nightmare to you. It's a very technical, complex question around voice flow. If anyone knows how to answer it, I'll give you $50 right now, but I'm pretty sure if you use voice flow for the first time, you couldn't. And these are the exact challenges that we're running into. So before we deployed AI agents across VoiceFlow, we were in a paradigm shift, and we were really at a crossroads of what to do with customer support as you're scaling as a startup. Do you simply add more human agent headcount to the equation, or do you start to think about automation from a true sense? So really the scaling challenge is we're getting more increasingly complex tickets over time, we're getting more questions over time, and it was getting very, very expensive to service those type of questions that you see, where it involves talking to an engineer, talking to a product manager, and the resolution times are just atrocious when you're doing that kind of support. So, like I said, you could really just do a couple things. I noticed a few people have built agents before. As you know, you can really just deploy right into the LLMs and build a FAQ wrapper bot and just put a wrapper around ChatGPT, or you can do something more intentional. And that's why we built Tico. Tico is an all-in-one conversational AI customer support agent. Really, it's rich in doing a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, it's about automating customer support. So it does a lot of different things that you see on the slide, such as like tasks from FAQ automation, from doing multi-LLM to different capabilities from knowledge base, integrating to various systems, ecosystems, and finally living on different interfaces. But the takeaway here is that that's not where we started. To get to this, there's a lot of different things in line. If you want to see the moment that Dennis was promising, this is Tico in action, fully answering customer support. That exact ticket where no human intervention, with the customer responding with a satisfactory result. So how did we get there, and why did we get there? Obviously to build the art of the possible and to build and automate our customer support in-house, but really it was an iterative approach from actually not starting from generative AI, but starting from pure logic and pure FAQ automation all the way up to what Tico is today, which is a fully automated agent. And the takeaway from all of this, if you leave with one thing here tonight, is that this isn't an overnight journey and this isn't something you just turn on like a switch. Generative AI is an iterative approach, and starting with your fundamental problem and driving ROI is kind of the theme of today's talk. So going back to the slide, this isn't where we started. It was something more from a maturity model, so I'll let Dennis take that away.
So when you're building products, you want to solve the simplest problem first and the most painful problem for users. And the way that we build our own products and work with our customers, so we have over 60 enterprise customers and 2,000 customers in general, building agents with VoiceFlow paying customers and 250,000 users. So we start off with something simple, right? A static bot. Now the problem with static bots is that they usually don't solve a user's problem. Who here has used a bad bot before? I'm assuming half the people have tired hands, but we probably all used really bad bots before. So as you move from a bad bot experience, you can build something pretty quickly by using a generative FAQ approach. Who here has heard of RAG before? Yeah. So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. You can basically feed some documents or information into a large language model, and you get some pretty relevant responses. That is great, and we call this a level 3 type of agent. We have something simple that solves the user's main concerns. If you curate your data well, you can get a pretty good automation rate. Now, as you move rightwards, which is the number of interfaces or integrations you deploy with, you now need to handle different channels that users are coming to you with. For us, we handle 4 different channels now. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But each channel has a different set of complexity and a different persona that you're trying to address. Somebody coming to your chatbot on your website versus an enterprise customer emailing support is very different. Now, on the top, we have agent complexity. So at the beginning, you might automate a couple of core workflows, but eventually, as you add more and more automation, that becomes more complex, and you need to handle them in different ways. And as you go along this frontier, you get through different levels of agents. The next step we call is an integrated assistant, where you have the agent actually helping the user do something, like process a refund, or fetch something from a database, maybe get the status of their order, all the way up to a high complexity agent that can handle a wide variety of tasks. So with VoiceFlow, our initial step, the level 3, was we wanted to create something that was in-app, where users can actually use the application, use the chatbot. We did FAQ automation and ticketing workflows within Zendesk, and we used our MLU model for doing classification and information extraction tasks. So this was V1, and this built the framework and the thesis for Tico. So I talked about 4 different channels. Here they are. We have the website. We have both a lead generation bot and a support bot that support this functionality. So if you want to book a demo for VoiceFlow, you will interact with our assistant there, and then we'll route through the automated workflow to the correct person who will be best able to answer your questions. We also have it within our product. We call it Creator App. So if you're within VoiceFlow, you see in the bottom right-hand corner, there will be an assistant that will answer questions for you, both about your account, the features of the product, and any kind of support questions you might have. We also have 2 other channels, Discord, which is where we have our community. If you go into our Discord, it can be pretty crazy. There's like hundreds of questions being asked per day. Tico's in there answering some of those questions. Finally, we have Zendesk, which is the example that Steve showed before. If you send us an email and Tico, the agent, thinks that it can answer the question well enough, we invoke Tico Assist, which then will provide an answer. And we'll go through some metrics later. We want to be super clear and specific on this. So the question is everything going to be AI? And I'll hand it over to Seem as he led the development of it.
Yeah, and without going too deep into the tech stack, because I think we want to think about deploying AI into products and how we intentionally thought about it. We didn't live on AI as being the technology that's poorly driving the whole assistant experience. We fundamentally thought about conversational AI and not only just LLMs, but also the traditional NLU and logic-based approaches. So it wasn't just trying to throw everything into an LLM and get a response, but really taking a hybrid approach. And a tool like VoiceFlow has allowed us to kind of configure those to a granular level. So let's look at a demo. I'm going to hope that this green stuff works out here. There we go.
Unfortunately, we don't have Tico to assist us here, so we're leaving it to humans to troubleshoot.
You know, all right, well, we couldn't really navigate to the screen here, but if you need a demo, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and we'll be happy to showcase a full demo. But for now, we came prepared with some of the additional experiences that you've seen. So for example, again, a really complex code level question, and Tico right away is able to near instantaneously able to provide a response that's actually tailored to their specific question. So specific query technical support, providing specific references to variables, all based on our technical documentation. Furthermore, here's another example from our Discord, a real example. Someone asked a very complex question with code snippets. Finally, Tico is able to answer, and the result is a human offering an AI a hug. So I would say the reviews are pretty solid here. But like I said before, was Tico an instant success for product managers or prospective product managers that think about deploying generative AI within their products? Like I said, it was an iterative approach. So V1 was really focused on the non-generative AI, getting it right, all the way to scaling up to generative AI and knowledge bases in V2, and what you see now as an automated agent. So just to run you quickly through the journey, it didn't start off with that fancy support that you saw there. It really started with the grassroots of just FAQs and getting that right. And I think that's the takeaway of starting with the lowest paying opportunity and then scaling up from there and getting the certain use cases right. So this was a simple situation where we're just passing variables through the assistant and it's able to provide answers like carousels as well as provide rich data for our internal operations. And then of course this just augmented our user base a lot more. Like this specific ticket was enough to make sure that our customer support team is enabled in that sense. But that was just V1, and that already results into business impact, which is the main takeaway here is that you're able to think about business impact each approach of the journey that you're deploying AI agents. And more specifically from deploying Tico V1 to when we deployed FAQ-based approach, we were able to slash our support costs in half. But that was just the start. When we thought about Tico V2, it was really about providing a comprehensive experience for our agents so that they're able to provide answers to questions while working towards our vision of auto support, or in the future what we will call eventually as AGI, which is essentially providing really highly contextualized support, like agent assist, and providing answers to that. And that was very successful in terms of just being able to route tickets and being able to handle more complexity tickets as we augmented our AI agent workforce and able to cause really good deflection scenarios. At that point, it was handling around 64% of all support questions, as well as only costing around 4% of overall support OpEx because of token costs and optimizing our models here. Finally, what you just saw was auto support and how Tico is doing it today, which is a real AI agent in our Zendesk answering tickets, closing tickets, and fully resolving tickets before they even hit human. So overall, the impact of Tico.
And so if you look at the metrics, I know product management is very metric driven, so 3 key metrics in the support space. Time of first reply, really important. If you're a support agent, you want to respond to the customer quickly, but you also want to get to our resolution faster. So with these 3 metrics of initial response, first time for resolution, confirmation of customers, those were cut significantly. We had it down to around 1/3 of the time. So pretty big impact there. Helps the customer get responses faster. And we do explicitly tell that this response is generated by an AI. We want to be transparent about that. And usually customers say, okay, this might work. And if it isn't, they say like, hey, can I talk to a human? And that's okay as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about technology. So that shift between V1 and V2 was powered by our built-in RAG solution, which we call the knowledge base. And you can see here the automation rate that we had for deflection on all our channels. We were able to automate it quite a bit more. So rather than 16% of questions reaching humans, by introducing generative AI and large language models, we dropped that down to 2.5%. So this is kind of the transitional time over last summer when we implemented that feature. So technology coming out does have a measurable impact, but you can do a lot more before riding that technology. So for the deflection metric that we have, so measuring every question that comes into VoiceFlow, Tico deflects around 97% by providing the answers with links and other things, and it handles a large number of things. talked about cost already here. I think the other thing to highlight is that another key metric is customer satisfaction, right? A bot can just tell you, here's an answer, and it could be bad. That's not very useful. So after implementing Tico, we found that our CSAT score, so customer satisfaction, was still in the 90s that we measured, which is pretty good, and showed that we could effectively utilize the AI agents to provide customer support. Now, looking at some of the channels for distribution, I talked about 4 main channels, I'll talk about 2 specifically. At the top here, we have Tico, which is in-app. I think we'll still do a demo at the end because we love demos. So that channel had the vast majority of interactions. So thinking about it as a co-pilot as you're building, you don't necessarily want to go to another channel to ask a question. You'd rather just be in app and say, okay, I have a question on this, can you help me? Vast majority of tickets there. And you can see here, 97% reflected, and this small sliver of 3% that were more complex or required a human went to another pool. That pool also had our direct email questions, so customers reaching out to our support at voicelo.com, and we handled around 30-40% of that automatically with Tico Assist. And at the end, you have this distribution of 91% handled via Tico and 9% via humans. Let's get more granular. We like specifics. So this is a quick flowchart Sankey diagram I put together from the past couple of days. We got around 72 email tickets with support questions, and we break these down into different levels of support. So if you worked with support before, L1 is pretty simple tickets, L2 is more complex, L3, call an engineer and hope that they can fix it for you. So this is roughly the distribution of these tickets, and after that we had 3 different categories. Was Tico able to solve them directly? We had around 20% of that for these email-based tickets. Did a customer get a response and say, no, that's not good enough, let's escalate it to a human? What is that? That's around 40%. And the rest, we did not have the confidence that Tico could answer these questions because they were complex, or we explicitly flagged that you should not answer this, so we skipped it and sent it directly to an agent. Now, one of the factors here is that a lot of these questions that Tico cannot answer are billing related. So if somebody says, hey, can you upgrade my account or downgrade my account, or payments failed or whatever, that is something that is much more complex for an AI agent to do compared to a person, especially from the financial perspective of offering upgrades, downgrades, and other things. Now, more numbers, more specifics. GPT-4o came out. What was the impact of the business? So you can see here that you see that latency and cost over the past, what is this section? 3 weeks, was pretty high. GPT-4o gets released. We test to make sure that the agent is working well. And then we see a significant drop in costs. We also implemented a new technique for changing how our knowledge base works, dropped as well. And we see that the latency dropped as a result of the model as well. So when you have a robust framework in mind for building any kind of agent, you have the testing in place, you have the knowledge, and you have this iterative mindset. What will happen is that when new techniques and models come out, you can greatly benefit from it. So I think this is a drop of around 60% in cost, which is pretty good. Okay. I still think we should do the demo. Let's try to get it up and running. Slides are fun, but demos are more fun.
All right, thanks Dennis for troubleshooting. I'm not a Mac guy. Okay, perfect. So let's showcase Tico in action. We'll start off really simple and get to the fun stuff. So right now we'll just show basic workflow automation, which is just escalating a ticket and submitting a ticket. So we'll start a new channel with Tico. This is our in-app assistant Tico. So essentially basic customer support chatbot stuff. But let's submit a support request ticket. And then I'll just say, live in a demo, and I can't get my AI agent working. Also, this is a test, so support team, please. So I don't get text on my phone.
This is called human assist.
Perfect. From the user level, it looks like not much happened, but on the back end, if we just hit a refresh here, let me just do the filters here.
This is our ticketing management system in the back end, which is Zendesk.
Refresh here. This is probably a cache page on my side. And right away, this ticket was flagged. So Tico has a bunch of automation and routing on the back end. So it's giving us information like I'm an enterprise user. I have information about my workspace, such as my project version, project ID, some information that Tico is feeding to the customer support agent so that they're able to respond right away. Now, let's take this a step further and actually just send a direct email to Tico. So I have an email inbox open over here, and let's just ask Tico a question. I'll ask something strategic, like maybe how do I add buttons to my chatbot? So I'll do how do I add and we'll just let that email send. And while that's waiting, let me just send a filter here. I think I have an email delay on my side, so we'll give it a second while it comes in. But essentially what we're waiting for here is for the ticket to come into the inbox, and then finally for Tico to kind of send a response. So just Zendesk isn't the greatest platform for live data here sometimes.
This is the fun of live demos, is you get to see all the nitty-gritty details.
At least we know it's not a Tico server. Well, good news, I do have the same exact ticket that recently closed, so I just show that off. All right, so this exact question that I asked earlier today, just 2 hours ago, how do I add buttons to my chatbot so a user can pick from them? Nearly instantaneously, we were able to get Tico providing a response right away of how to do that straight from our documentation. But essentially the experience is that an AI agent directly responded to Tico with the appropriate responses creating our documentation. And then Tico can also do various other tasks for the sake of demo. Looks like the demo gods are on our side. We'll keep it there for now, but happy to share more expanded demos and other things that folks want to see. But I think we could just round away with some takeaways, especially for this audience here, which is around what are the exact takeaways for building AI agents. So obviously there's a build versus buy mentality. You can deploy directly to the agents. You can use agent builders. But really it's about thinking about your whether it's customer support, whether it's any other business workflows, what the exact steps and outcomes you're trying to achieve, and how you phase them out and how you approach them out. And that's what leads you to the decision of what building versus buying products or in-house. Obviously, proactive and reactive applications to AI impacts bottom line metrics, the most important ones being usually revenue and costs. And obviously, GPT wrappers will really cut it, especially if you're looking for outcome-driven AI agent experiences. And then finally, from our perspective, starting with customer support is the lowest hanging and easiest place to start. But business workflows all across, from lead generation to community support to all the different ways Tico's deployed today, are very effective ways to think about it. So we'll wrap with that, and we'll obviously open to questions, but Dennis and I have another talk coming up next week focused for enterprise leaders around measuring and impacts and for customer support. So a little bit more of an expanded talk than the one you saw today, with more metrics, but even more data to go behind it. And then also, just one more shameless plug, one of our flowsters from Australia, Pete Isaacs, he's very big in the L1 rag space, is building an AI style advisor for Indochino. So 2 events to look forward to. If you need details, please connect with us. And yeah, happy to open up the floor for any questions. Awesome. Thank you to the team. We are going to just set up quickly here for the panel and Q&A. Part of this, we were going to talk about Q&A. I'm going to split this up into 2 sections. We're going to try to stick to the half-an-hour time frame that we gave. I want to be able to hopefully split this in 2 parts. One, people who attended the event have questions on here, so I want to go through and actually answer them. Ask them, because you're answering, I'll answer them. And then I want to open it up to everyone here. So if you don't get your question asked or answered, please feel free to come up. Either stand up and yell and we'll repeat it, or come up to the front and you can ask your question, but I want to make sure that the people in the room are getting value, not just the people who decided that they had a question during this. Alright, so I went through and pulled some of these together. One of the questions that first came up, and it was kind of like a little bit strange, and I would love to figure out all of your perspectives, and feel free to divide and conquer as you need. We talked a lot about AI in product management, but when do you recommend to not use AI in product management? Let's start with there. Anyone can take that one whenever you want, but we talked a lot about it tonight. What is the anti-pattern to this?
I can start. So who here has heard about the usage of Delve in ChatGPT? Anybody read that report? No? Okay. So in the years when ChatGPT came out, sort of late 2022, increasingly 2023, 2024, the usage of the word Delve has skyrocketed. And the reason for that is that ChatGPT loves to delve into things. So from that perspective, whenever people are writing or submitting work and it has Delve, it's a little bit of an inside joke now. I don't know if people are seriously using that word or just using ChatGPT or mimicking it. I don't know. And I think what's important is to stand out in the space now that generating text is so easy, or images. It's really important to think about being concise and deliver things in your personal tone and voice. I think it's great to use Gen AI to brainstorm things, to come up with ideas and do all of that. But there is another meme about people using ChatGPT to take their one bullet point idea, generate an essay, it goes over to somebody else uses ChatGPT to then summarize that to a one-line idea. So I don't think all of us should be writing essays with ChatGPT. Try to cut through the noise, a very direct communication when you're using it. And yeah, I think I've used the tool so much that I can track when people are using that. So I think the patterns of high volume, like fluffy language were appreciated before for a verbiage perspective, but keep things concise, find your own tone of voice, learn to stand up to that stuff.
I was just going to add, just more generally, not just around product management, product development. When I think of the use cases that we're seeing the most success with, it's around enhancing human capabilities. So, a good example would be, let's say you've written something you want to post on LinkedIn, you use ChatGPT to fact check it, for example, right? It's a great tool. It's not changing the voice, your personal voice. It's just, an extra opportunity there. Another really good example would be, around, being careful with IP. You don't want to use these tools to replace the voice of your employees or copy other people's IP. You really want to use them to enhance the capabilities that are there. That's critical to keep in mind, and I think that goes across any domain, not just product management.
You want me to see out?
I think you probably hear me. The one area I'm uncertain about, and I'm hearing a little bit more about it, is synthetic users, like being able to interview fake, real but synthetic users. I'm not sold on that one yet. I think there are too many mistakes. There's too many obvious reasons why I don't think we're there yet. So I'm a little bit skeptical of relying on, kind of doing away with user research and just relying on vast amounts of synthetic fake users to derive my insights. That's the one area I won't go near yet.
Awesome, thank you. Next question came in. What strategies can product leaders implement to ensure diverse perspectives are incorporated into the development and deployment of generative AI systems?
You take that one.
You repeat the question?
What strategies can product leaders implement to ensure diverse perspectives and incorporating them into the development and deployment process of AI systems?
So I talked about a couple examples. When I gave a talk around, using AI to find and remove bias. That was one of them. Using AI to examine things like team composition and finding gaps in diversity. Using AI for things like accessibility analysis or user experience to try and break down barriers. There's a lot of different strategies that are there. I think the strategy that you would use will probably be dependent on the type of product, the user, intended users, and that sort of thing. But there's definitely a lot coming, and there's more on its way. So, awesome.
I'd say to the earlier point that Renee is talk to your users. The vast majority of people do not live in Canada. Canada has 1/200 of the population. The vast majority of people do not work at startups. We're a global world. So when you're building a solution, make sure that it covers what the average user looks like, and that is pretty different than usually what decision makers are. So talk to customers. To the earlier points, build a team that represents the views of your users, and sort of adding on the AI aspect, don't take ChatGPT's word as the gospel, right? Go through that design process that was talked about earlier, right? Innovate, incorporate. Just because ChatGPT made it sound fancy doesn't mean it's the truth.
And then I'll just add on from the internal side. When you're building AI agents internally, you will often get caught in the trap of building something super contained, which is the theme of our talk, which is starting off small. But as you kind of scale the utility and are looking for ROI with your AI agent, collaboration is the most important part. One of the earliest slides that we showed at TICO was the rich data sources and integrations that it possesses. It's not purely a software integration, it's also integrating with teams. So bringing TICO together, obviously we're core drivers of the product, but actually deploying AI agent involved in engaging our engineering teams, our product teams, our revenue teams. So traditional product management mindset as being that CEO of your product, it's also important to think about AI agents in the same way that you can make them really dumb if you have really singular sources of data.
I think I'm okay. I want to riff on Neil's point. I'm really fascinated by some of the ideas you have of AI being used to kind of assess what practices you're doing. But I think the question was about what can product leaders do, and I think it's on product leaders to hire diverse people as well. That people building these things need to be reflective of the people that live in this world, and so that's where I would start.
The question that got overwhelming from multiple people was just like, from the panel, what is your favorite AI tool and what AI tool do you recommend the most? So since it was asked a bunch of times, I just want to get it out. You guys can't say your own tool. But I would love to hear outside of something that you've built, what is your favorite tool or what do you recommend the most?
I mean, mine's so boring. Like, ChatGPT was my first, you never forget your first, right? And so that's the one I continue to turn to. The new capabilities have been really great. I'm experimenting more with some of the visuals. Those are kind of out there. Or in response, but by far my fave. It's a truthful response.
was just gonna say, I mean, very similar. I'm very fascinated. I'm enjoying using the 4.0 version. I think there's some really interesting stuff there. It's interesting to compare the results between 4 and 4.0, right? And the different use cases for it. But I'm looking at the stuff in 4.0 and I'm pretty confident. Pretty cool stuff.
Want me to pass it?
Yeah.
There you go.
For me, I'm a dev at heart, so Copilot and using GPT-4 with Advanced Interpreter, pretty good. Speeds up the process a lot from a coding perspective, libraries or tools that you've forgotten. Great way to write code faster and deliver components faster.
I was going to steal Neil's answer with GPT-4.0, but we're waiting on those vision and voice capabilities, so stay tuned for that. But for now, if anyone's tried Anthropic's prompt generator, I'm a big fan of how they generate prompts, and it's just leveling up my prompt engineering skills.
Awesome. I'm in the same boat, a lot of GPT, a lot of Anthropic. Are you guys can ask? Or you can ask me? How do you ensure AI transparency and accountability throughout the systems? AI systems operate generally in a black box method, especially in ChatGPT, which makes their decision making opaque at best. How do you navigate that, especially when you're dealing with clients? Yes, thanks.
No one work?
I can kick us off. So I think hallucinations is a natural part of where we're headed in the space. One key way we mitigated here at Voiceful, I've been talking to a few folks about it, was just segmenting our knowledge base. So when you first deploy AI agents, your natural tendency is just to throw one big knowledge base with all sorts of information, videos, text, transcripts, whatnot. What we've actually done as we were deploying Tico through the various phases was segmenting our knowledge bases to different categories. So for example, that technical support stuff that you saw was based entirely on our technical documentation, our dev docs, our API docs, etc. And that's just its own knowledge base source. And what's important about why it's important to do that is you're creating a focused knowledge base. If you think about tagging your knowledge base, like providing categories for it, it's essentially the same idea, but then we're applying logic on top of it. Before it even hits an AI or an LLM, we're applying logic to provide confidence of where that falls in the knowledge base spectrum. Is it a technical question? Is it a tutorial, beginner-friendly type question? And that's where we're able to create more focused responses. If you have more of the same data in one knowledge base, it kind of yields very significant results.
I don't have too much to add to this one. For me, it's a lot of working with clients and being transparent about our methodologies and working with them, not so much about building a product at this point that has some AI that I need to be very transparent with customers for. I noticed in your demos, you mentioned transparency. Your chatbots are saying right away, this is not a real person. So I find that kind of deliberate and intentional move interesting. But for me, it's really like being honest with my colleagues and my clients. Like, did I write those descriptions, or who did this?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about two examples. Well, I talked about one example, and I'll sort of expand on another one. So, you know, we worked with a lot of clients that have pretty strong regulatory frameworks around transparency, especially things like insurance and financial institutions. Having secondary systems that are able to validate and confirm that are independent from the primary system is one tactic. The other thing is using AI not as the be-all and end-all, but rather as a tool that then gets referred back to a human that understands the necessary aspects of transparency and the regulatory framework they're working in. I think those two are going to be important. I think I think there's a lot of work and research going on right now around algorithmic transparency that I think is going to become fundamentally more important over the next 5 to 10 years. Especially as AI gets deployed in a number of different new environments, right, where it's really critical to have that transparency. So it's evolving.
I think a couple answers. One is being really good at testing things. So we know the expression, if it quacks like a duck, talks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So developing a rigorous standard of tests to make sure that the system you're building, whether it's an AI agent or another model, will actually behave as expected. There'll always be random things that people ask, unexpected behavior, but having that set of tests is important. The second thing is that team collaboration aspect. If your AI strategy is sending a nerd into the corner to build like a black box model, that's not the the right way to do it. You want to have the whole team collaborating, you want to have user testing being done. When somebody asks, how does this thing work, you want to have something that will pop up and you'll be able to trace through and say, okay, this step led to this, led to that, right? Go through the logs, go through user data, go through the designs, right? So that's really important. I think that's where what we've seen working with enterprise customers is they get that aha moment where an executive comes in, a designer comes in, and they're all working together, seeing, hey, this is what's happening here, what's happening here, hey, developer, what's happening at this step, hey, designer, why did you choose this user flow to happen this way, hey, product person, why did you make this decision? That collaboration allows people to see those blind spots and have great transparency, and when we ask questions from a user side, you can go find what generated the answer. And always, if you're using a third-party service, there'll be some risk there, but at least you know the risks ahead of time.
Awesome. Prepare your questions. I'm going to ask this one last one, and then if you want to either stand up and yell at me or just come up front, I'll take any of that. So not every PM who comes into PM comes from a technical background. A lot of us come from, I'm an ex-lawyer, I've had designers, I've had all of it. For the people who aren't technical, and even for people who are technical, like how do you best wrap your head around these new technologies? How do you stay on top of AI? What tools do you play with? What resources, time, energy, effort, where do you spend that to make sure you're not falling behind?
I think you guys are probably pretty good. What I do is I ask ChatGPT to explain to me technical concepts that I'm having a difficult time with. I say that not joking, but I really do mean it. These concepts, I actually feel quite optimistic. I think these technologies are leveling the playing field in a way. I don't feel the same kind of gap in my technical skills that I maybe would have felt 10 years ago working in this field. I'm thinking about a specific example where I had to, simple tasks, just describe and articulate the tech stack we were using to develop a given tool. And I can do decent, I'm fine with that, but I was curious to see whether an AI could help me improve my descriptions a lot. And the output was amazing, and I shared it with my engineer, and I was like, hey, how's this response going? And he looked at me and was like, it's perfect. I was like, I didn't admit where, the help I got, but I was like, cool, thanks. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think it levels the playing field.
I think so too. I mean, I mentioned earlier on breaking down barriers, like not having a strong understanding of the tech that's there is a barrier, right, for many. But these technologies are really good at breaking down those barriers. You don't have to understand. I mean, I don't understand everything that's going on in ChatGPT or some of these other tools. They're a far cry from what I started with way back when I was writing rules in ontological systems. But asking these models and using, just think, I gave an example in a discussion I did a few weeks ago. I feel like I'm a creative person, but I have terrible creative input. I don't know if any of you are like that. Like, I can't draw anything, I can't play music well, but I feel like I've got this creative energy.
I feel that.
And these tools are really good, right? Like, I can describe something that I want to produce, and it produces really, really good output. And I can tweak it, and if you think about just that, right, the barrier around being able to express yourself creatively and the capabilities that are coming in these omni-channel tools, I think I'm super confident that these barriers are going to be removed, whether you're tech savvy or a professional pianist or anything like that. I think these barriers are going to be broken down.
Kind of related story to that, I was writing a newsletter and needed to generate an icon for it, and my option was message our designer and bug him, or use some generative model. I saved our designer's time and just generated a quick logo. It was like a book with AI written on it, pretty simple. I think from a PM perspective though, go build something, right? Don't just rely on your engineering team to build things, go try stuff out yourself. I think that will unlock those lists of questions that are the unknown unknowns, right? So right now you might have a question like, oh, how do you do ChatGPT? How do I work with agents? How do I work with RAG? You start building things, 1,000 more questions will pop up, and then you'll start getting to the core of the issue. But build stuff is the best way to learn.
Awesome. I want to open this up to the floor. If you have a question, either there's one in the back, couple in the front. We've got a little queue going on. Let's start our way from back to front, because I appreciate the hustle for being in the back. So if you want to come up to the front, you can ask your question. Yeah, you're on the back.
I can just do it from here. I can hear you.
Yeah.
So I'm a product manager with a technical background, and I'm sure you're all aware, we're asked about like biases that come with AI, and if you were all aware there are racial, pretty strong gender biases when we're talking about AI-generated models. Is there anything you're doing to offset that? Like we know the data from the medical field, from pretty much any data, it is white males. So is there anything you're doing to offset that? Because having some female engineers won't really fix that.
I think the training data for models is a huge issue, especially on the transparency side. A lot of the core data sets that have come out are not very representative, and there's one image generation model data set called Lion. It's very large in the industry from a research perspective. Researchers found some very problematic things in there, and it took 2 years for people to actually look back and start cleaning it out. So it is a huge systemic issue. From our perspective, what we have done is, our philosophy is build a product and let people build out the systems around it. So within VoiceFlow, when you build out a certain workflow and automation, you get to control what kind of phrases, for example, are being recognized, you get to tweak, you get to test. That provides some level of control to you. If a model is really, really bad and really, really biased, that's hard to fix. But in the short term, at least, with that testing framework, with that configurability that you have, you can mitigate a lot of those things as well. So that also means don't connect ChatGPT directly to production, right? Have some tests, have some guardrails, have some defined workflows, especially on sensitive topics. But it'll take time for good data to be curated as well, especially if you've heard about the recent data licensing agreements between OpenAI, Google. Like Google signed an agreement with Reddit. Reddit does not have the best information on the internet on certain topics, so it's a hard pressure to fight. So I think definitely there are models and standards. A company called Hugging Face, they make an ecosystem and a library for models, data sets, etc. They have a framework for determining fairness, transparency, and all these other things. So if that's important, follow those people, provide their support. Otherwise, just the companies that build the biggest models will ignore that aspect, right? Because it's not profitable to have data with lineage, data that's balanced. That's a hard problem to solve, so a lot of people gloss over.
Yeah, the other thing that we're seeing now is these models are not sort of once and done, right? They're learning in long-term memory. So the ability to train after the fact, right? So you can have people, especially where you're working on a model that you're looking to deploy for a particular situation, you can bring the other perspectives in during the product development phase, during the product testing, and check for bias, look for these opportunities for improvement, and then have the final deployed model, more tailored. But yeah, I mean, it's there, right? Like the biases, these models are only as good as the data they're trained on. And we saw that in the news last week, and some of the stuff that just got released, and it's going to be a long-term problem.
I'll add, I guess in my role, what comes to mind first is we do a lot of user testing. And I'm actually pretty grateful. I've been lucky to work with great brands, and when we are talking about the type of testing we're going to do, whether that's 6 to 8 people for a set of user interviews, or whether it's a lot more to try and achieve statistical significance, maybe using a survey, we're very conscious of the numbers. So if we're interviewing 8 people, we want to split number across all genders, including non-binary people. That's something within our control. We can recruit people deliberately to do this type of testing, and that goes in and informs what comes out of it. That's my professional answer. On a more personal level, I don't not notice. So my advice is don't let it slide. Don't not call it out. I'm thinking about the demo. I think it was just ChatGPT 4.0 2 weeks ago. They did that demo and everyone was over the moon about it. And I saw this, and I saw the employee, was it ChatGPT, talking to the assistant. And that assistant was so flirty, talking about the bucket hat. You guys know the one? It was just a couple of weeks ago. And everyone was celebrating this, and I'm just anybody, this is really weird. You've got an assistant here, but they are so flirtatious in tone. Don't turn a blind eye to that. Notice and do something about it when you're in a position to do something about it.
All right, not yet, we're working our way from the back. Sorry, I'm gonna come to you, we're gonna go into the crowd.
Hi, my name is Vivek. I'm a product manager in the retail space. We have an argument going on in my company, so I'm hoping to recognize from you guys. So we are trying to use AI to simulate audiences. We are a B2C company, and our leadership thinks that, you know what, let's the machine do its thing. It's simulating audiences, and let's trust what it's going to tell us. Product, we are trying to push against that, saying no. We want human interaction, we trust real audiences, and that's more closer to, like, no, and the audiences are always changing, right? Your demographics are always changing. So, how do you pick, or like, you know, or is there a middle ground to this?
I mean, I would say do both, right? I mean, I wouldn't, you know, we've talked about the challenges around inaccuracy and, you know, model bias and other things like that. I love putting stuff through AI models and being able to see the output, but I don't rely on that being the final verdict in anything, whether it's things like, you know, audience testing or usability testing or other things like that. But why not? I mean, these are tools, so I would use both. And I don't think AI can necessarily replace the, you know, the humans, right? We have to keep the humans at center. But if it can find 10% of the things before it gets to the human audience, then that's a plus in my book. So
And what if it gives conflicting, like, you know, yeah, you do both, but
it will. I mean, it will give conflicting, and you'll have to determine, right? You use it as an input. When you're designing products and you get an audience in, you're going to get conflicting results from two different people, right? Two different users, right? And you resolve that in a similar fashion, right? It doesn't mean that one opinion is invalid. There's probably some useful stuff coming from the system, even if it disagrees with the human audience. But I would just use it as another input. That's my approach.
Yeah, I really like that answer. I don't think you have to choose. I think interviewing 8 humans, you're going to get super conflicting results as well. My talk was all about intuition and creativity and using your judgment. It's about following signals. I mentioned a reluctance to kind of trust synthetic data and users. I don't think we're there yet. But at the same time, when I do an activity like a creative matrix with a team of clients, we have started to integrate one of those columns, if you're familiar with the creative matrix. We have started to use some generative AI in those. That's not feedback, that's not what you're asking, but it is a perfect example of using humans who are a normal thing, but saying, let's just give the AI a little bit of a chance to see what it comes up to say. So I'm not really one or full of the other, except for that synthetic data thing, but I would always side with the product folks in your companies. So my vote's
Oh, sorry.
So I think both is good. I'll give a specific strategy. We've implemented something called bot-to-bot testing on some examples. So how do you find things, specific cases that break your product? That's usually good for AI automation. You could define specific personas to ask certain kinds of questions. That's a good way to find edge cases before it leads to the customers. For high signal decisions, I think we lead to customers. The story that one of our coworkers tells, he used to work at a large grocery supermarket. He's in Australia, we mentioned briefly. And if you ask ChatGPT like what somebody would do at a store, they might give you a bunch of answers, right? They might want to return a product, they might want to shop for something else. All correct answers, but what saves the company the most amount of money is automating refunds. And you only find that out by looking at real user data, going through those transcripts, doing real testing, and looking at what that happens. So using a large language model, which samples its information from the internet, will give you plausible things, but it won't necessarily give you right things. So ask your question, am I looking for plausible things that are being said, or am I looking for the answer, or a specific idea, right? So you could build a generic product. Generic product startups and generic products fail. So if you want to go down this mediocre path, right, you can't do that, but the challenge of building a startup and building a product is it has to be excellent, right? We felt this before. If you don't have an excellent product in a certain domain for a certain user, it won't do well, right? So I think that's increasingly important, and with the earlier discussion about how we can copy products, we can copy designs, that's all possible, the excellence will stand out.
You're next.
Oh, jeez, wow, that was really loud. So, in the age of AI and everyone using these tools, and just for context, I work in recruitment, I still remember when we had to go through resumes that were physical resumes, not LinkedIn profiles. But how do you see the authenticity of people being altered through like AI tools, and what can users do to still keep that self that's part of them, that's unique and vibrant, so that makes them stand out as opposed to something? Because now I'm seeing a lot of messages that right away you're like, okay, that obviously, I've known this person for years, that's not how they talk, that's not how they operate. How do we keep that uniqueness that is an individual utilizing these tools in play?
I can start off. Last Thursday I went through 750 student resumes. I spent a whole day doing that. It took time. I do not read cover letters because people write generic templated cover letters. I'm guilty of it as well. Whenever somebody says write a cover letter, I'm like, okay, fine, copy paste, change company name, whatever. I did see one cover letter that mentioned my name rather than hiring manager. I'm like, okay, this person took 10 seconds to Google or search on LinkedIn who might be hiring. But my recommendation is build a project, build a product, show me what you can build. That for me is what stands out. I actually had a discussion on LinkedIn with a student who was building a cover letter automation system for their peers applying on Waterloo Works. And I'm like, this is cool, but you're giving me even more of a reason not to read cover letters. It says like, now generate a cover letter. I'm like, no, don't do that. I don't care. People, like, you're just getting generic stuff. The cool part of the thing that he built was that you could go through like a larger resume, like multiple pages, and for the resume, pick out the relevant experience. Which I think from a curation perspective is a very relevant use case, because if you go through the product description and matches, that takes time. And tailoring that experience is still something that takes something that you've done before, your authentic, longer resume, and chunks it down into something that's more consumable for a recruiter or a hiring manager. So I think the recommendation is find things that have some signal, things that have a little bit of friction to it, right? And then you'll have the more committed individuals. That's how I hire. Might be the wrong way. So.
I was going to say a couple aspects. So from a recruitment perspective, I think having a person come in, like we don't hire typically based on resumes. We do case studies. We do other sort of in-depth things. I think if people feel there's value in just producing like output from AI and that's good enough, and I think it's on us, everyone, to kind of demonstrate and learn how to use these tools effectively. I'll give you a good example. My eldest son is 17, he's in grade 11 right now, and all of his friends are using OpenAI, ChatGPT to write papers and do various other things. There's a teacher at a school that's actually teaching them about how to use these tools effectively, and said, you can use these in our courses, but I want you to think of different ways of using it. So a good example would be, I think last year you had to do an essay on like Macbeth or something, right? Like that. And the teacher said, use ChatGPT, but not to write the essay. Use ChatGPT to ask you questions of topics, right? And then write it in your own voice. And I think if we place the value on the voice that's coming out of these things, because eventually like you're going to the lowest common denominator of everyone is using these tools exactly the same way. No one stands out, but the people that have, their voice present, I think it's great to use ChatGPT and other tools to, say, curate a LinkedIn post before you post it. But like I said earlier, use it to fact check. Ask it to fact check the stuff you've got in your post, or ask it to, is this going to appeal to this type of audience? But still write it in your own voice. I think that's going to be important.
It's funny, you should have seen the bio that ChatGPT spat out for me before I had to rewrite it. It was talking about how much of a visionary I was. My distinguished career. Tone it down a little bit. I think Dennis mentioned like the need to use your authentic voice a lot. That's true. I can't imagine being a student like what your son is doing when the timeline is looking right in front of you. I can't imagine what that is like. I do think it's really special. Even creativity, I talked a lot about that today. At the same time, I do feel like these tools can enhance and augment that too. So I'm very much unsure where the future is going in this place, and I'll give you a very specific example. I was trying to develop a metaphor, and I had this idea in my head, and I feel good that it was my own idea, but I was struggling, like, does this make sense? Of course, when you ask ChatGPT a question, it wants to make you so happy. It's like, absolutely, this makes sense. So you have to get used to using these tools. You have to learn how to use them. You have to go out of your way to make sure that your authentic self is shining through. And I think it's really obvious when it doesn't. So for everybody here, maybe still writing papers or writing newsletters or whatever, it's so obvious. Strive for excellence, I think we heard here today, and do what you can to set yourself apart. Right? I think ChatGPT and tools can help, but if you rely on them too much, you're going probably nowhere fast, at least with current capabilities.
I'll quickly add on just to talk about everything else everyone has said with another analogy not related to AI. I don't know if you guys have kids or watch Mr. Beast yourself, but in the creator economy, you're seeing a bunch of YouTube videos coming out that are exact Mr. Beast clones. We're making videos similar in context, similar in structure, and it's very common for the user to right away gauge what those videos are and click off of it. So going back to the lowest common denominator argument, when you see things that are becoming more and more common, it forces curation, it forces creativity. So I see it as a net positive once everyone reaches that level of mediocrity. One over here, I'll come back over here.
My question is pretty similar to the gentleman's. At this day and age, all teams, product teams especially, are equipped with ChatGPT or similar AI tools. So how does one stay truly unique and deliver creative, innovative value to be competitive and win the market?
To win the market, you have to win the market, and the market is full of people just like us. And I think that if you're not reaching the people, your buyers, if you're not understanding what is valuable to them, not what your business thinks is valuable, but in our work, in our practice, in early product discovery, we get very granular about the type of value any experience is providing. And that's not being pulled from thin air or from ChatGPT. It's through doing research with the target end users your product or your client or your business is looking to serve. It's only in understanding their precise pain points that you can truly create value for them. So when we talk about value in the market, the key is the market. We talk to that market.
I was just going to say, focusing on the business problems, like the outcomes. Don't do AI or don't use AI just for the sake of it. Keep things grounded in real world outcomes, real world value. And humans tend to be better at that than AI. So those that understand the market, understand the business value, they're going to come through.
Easy answer, talk to customers. Harder answer, it's hard to talk to customers. For a number of reasons, sometimes they have mean things to say, and you have to take that feedback. But I think that solve their problems, again, it's an easy thing to say, hard thing to do. It takes time, you don't always get it right. You build something, you miss the mark, you don't know who your ICP is, you try, you miss, you iterate. You might not frame it the right way, you might not have the correct implementation, it might not load fast enough, the code might not. There's so many variables, right? So I think the thing to avoid is just slapping on AI or slapping on features, right? Keep the features smaller, keep the product surface area smaller. It's something we talk about a lot. The bigger the problem, the bigger the product, the bigger the problems, because you have more things that can go wrong and more ways to confuse your user, right? So I was reading about something, people are like, I want a notes app, and everybody's like, you want to sync the cloud? Do you want AI summarization? Do you want it to integrate with all these different things? Like, no, I want an app for my notes, right? And it's like, focus on the user problem, don't just slap things on it. From a startup perspective, it's hard because when you're doing demos, you want to do something shiny, right? For investors or customers. When you have a big company, you want to do something shiny for your executives or finance partners, something else, so it is hard. But yeah, find a way to get, I think it first came from an essay from Paul Graham, find 100 users that love your product rather than 10,000 people who are kind of like, meh.
All right, just jumping on time here, we just have 2 last questions. There was one over here somewhere, there we go. We'll do 2, right here, this makes sense, I don't have to walk very far.
Hi, I'm Siddharth, and it was really wonderful listening to all the. Sorry, it's really wonderful listening to all the insightful discussions that have been happening. There are a few of my questions. One is like, do you think the difference between the best and the worst of the professionals would shrink because of AI? Second, I do see a lot of GPT and similar kind of models struggling with unstructured data, because structured, yes, definitely it works well. Unstructured, it's always a struggle. Third is there any structured approach to monetize using AI, right? As a non-technical user, as a technical user, as a developer, you can start doing so much, but as a non-technical user, what do you do? Using GPT and the last observation is pretty much like, it still gives you a lot of possible scenarios, which becomes a bit difficult, right? From a readability perspective, like just put some prompt, and by the moment you just put in a blink of eye, it's like 1,800 kind of lines of words that you read, which becomes a bit frustrating as well. So I actually think maybe I should just do a Google search, right, rather than getting into GPT and going through the hassles of comprehending. So those are the open-ended questions and would definitely help, yes.
So there's a bunch in there. Maybe I'll take the first one because I think it's probably the easiest. The question was around the difference between sort of the worst and the best, right? I think the worst output or the worst production or the worst employees or however you want to refer it, I think it will elevate. It'll move that sort of low bar a little higher, but I still think the best will come through, right? I don't think that's a terrible thing, right? I talked about removing barriers, right? If I can use an AI to get a creative idea that I can't do because I'm terrible at drawing, that's a good thing, right? If students can use it to improve their writing, I have a kid who's dyslexic. I've seen the challenges that they've had at school, and knowing that there's these tools that are going to be able to open all these doors, right? And teachers at the beginning, when we didn't have them diagnosed, said, he's just terrible at writing. Like his written output is terrible, and people would look at that and say, well, that's sort of like the low bar, right? So if he can overcome that barrier by using these tools, great, right? It will just make more people shine and free up that creativity. So that's the first one. There was a few more in there.
There's a study done by BCG and another one by Microsoft about raising the average bar. I recommend reading about it, both from a technical perspective and for employees within a management consultant perspective. It's a pretty interesting read. They did some comparisons there, so definitely think it can raise the bar. The question is, what does raising the bar mean? Does making things sound better and more structured mean you're actually improving the output, or do you have to change what we're assessing against? Second question about structured and unstructured data, I'd actually challenge that, and I think that large language models are actually really good at taking unstructured data and structuring it. At a large scale, maybe not for perfection, but an example that I did, I was copying formats for some notes. I had some emails, phone numbers, basic data entry stuff, threw it into model, got back a CSV, right? Unstructured to structured. Normally would have taken me like 10 minutes to manually do this while my brain prompts, so that was nice. Third question about people who are technical versus non-technical building and using these tools. Ask ChatGPT to help you learn to code. Ask it to help you with prototypes. There are low-code, no-code tools available. Start with that. But I think the definition of what coding is will continue to evolve. It's not just remembering the keywords or how to structure things. It's about logic. It's about thinking about data models, about testing. Like being a developer is not just about writing code. So as long as you have that mindset, you can learn a bunch from these generative AI tools.
And just to add on to that, like Dennis said, all those points, and then when you think about AI agents, you're really trying to tackle a singular use case. When you first start off, you go to ChatGPT, summarize this for me, write up an email, write up blah, blah, blah. These are all singular, granular use cases. Now to answer your question about monetizing, when you think about time efficiencies, those are essentially cost-saving of activities, and essentially that's the number one optimization. But when you think about doing a task really well, there can be monetized efforts from it. Some experiments that we ran with Tico, for example, we have our own token monetization system where users are able to purchase AI tokens to use certain parts of voice flow. We've had more flagging indicators of upsell motions, for example. They're running close on their token limits. Let's send a friendly message generated by LLM to upsell them there. So there's obviously direct revenue generating opportunities you can experiment with, but the takeaway of getting monetization ROI out of any AI is deploying it super well and deploying it intentionally, and obviously all the other stuff that's mentioned again.
Awesome. Last question.
Yes. Okay. Hi, my name is Elham. I'm a product manager. I have two questions specifically to AI agents. So the first one, thank you so much for sharing the metrics because now I'm very curious about something. So I see that the first time reply moved from 300 plus minutes to 1 minute. However, like full-time resolution went from 26 hours to 8 hours, which I still think is quite high for an AI agent, so I would love to know more about that. And my second question from my experience is that apart from building the agent, the other challenge is managing the knowledge base, and most of companies move from SOPs and a lot of documentation that is not machine readable, that need to be machine readable to be consumed by the agent. So any advice you can give to companies like wanting to build their own agents? Thank you.
I can start with the first part, and I know Dennis has perspectives on the knowledge base side of things, but yeah, the difference in metrics that you saw, in fact, sometimes when you're working in customer support, you give an answer to the customer and the customer doesn't respond. They're usually happy with the response. They forget to check their inbox. So those scenarios, we don't automatically just close a ticket when an AI provides a response. We give some time for the user to process. So we have tickets that auto-close within 48 hours, so then that kind of impacts the metric a little bit. But all in all, obviously the entire slash of response time was obviously huge for us, but the resolution time going down is an indicator of just the utility of AI. Those metrics they saw were impacted by user side.
And to add to that response, we're not automating everything yet, so it's not that it's taking the AI agent 8 hours, it might be automated for 50% of cases in a minute, but then you have that long tail, that bug that you can't track down, a more complex issue, you have to hunt down somebody within the team to solve it, so that's just like a law of averages, but from the support perspective, right now you free up more support people, more engineers to actually look at those issues, right? So you went on multiple directions. The second question on processing unstructured data, great question, great problem. There's so much data that has not been digitized. One of the fun facts that our CEO brain is somewhere in the back there tells us that the fax industry is a $7 billion industry, which is, I can't imagine that, right? So there's so much data to be digitized. I think the advancements in vision models and document models, there's a bunch of open source models available, and you're listed on Hugging Face. It's a great place to start to actually do this processing. There's a few in the document layout LM. With that model, it'll give you some processing. There's all the vision models that exist, whether proprietary through Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, and also the open source ones. Those are really going to help. But yeah, huge problem to digitize information, whether it's medical, financial, so many industries.
I was just going to say that the firms that are behind creating the AI tools are also very excited about digitizing all that data out there, so I think it's only going to get better because they've run out of stuff to train their models on. That would be the one. I was gonna say, you showed the close times and stuff, but the real metric there, I think, aside from customer satisfaction staying the same, is also the amount of time that you free for internal employees, right? Because that's a direct ROI for the business.
Awesome. So we've covered these guys for 50 minutes with questions and answers, and I think that they've enjoyed it, but I think they've had a little bit of enough to grilled up front. So I just want to say, thank you to the panel. Thank you for every one of you for coming out and answering any questions during your presentation. So thank you very much for coming out. Thank you to the volunteers who said have made this possible, and more importantly, thank you to everyone who showed up. So big round of applause for yourself and everyone else. Awesome. So we're going to end it here for the panel. We have about an hour-ish. We have this space until about 10. We're going to use it for just networking. There's drinks. I think there's some cookies and stuff in the back. Feel free to do that. Feel free to meet people 3 rows back from you that will be in the back of your head the whole time. They'd like to see your face. But yeah, just looking forward to networking with all of you, and just, yeah, thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate it.